What if burnout isn't happening because you're lazy? What if it's happening because you're trying too hard? Your calendar is color-coded. You have a morning routine, a system for the system, an app that tracks the app that tracks your habits. You have read the books on discipline. You wake up earlier than you need to, specifically so you can get ahead of a day that somehow you are still behind on by 10 in the morning. And underneath all of it, quietly, the way a leak announces itself only by the damp spot on the ceiling, there's a suspicion you don't say out loud, that the harder you row, the further the shore gets. Hustle culture has exactly one answer to that suspicion. More. More hours, more discipline, more optimization, more willpower, stacked on top of willpower that's already cracking. 2,300 years ago, a Chinese philosopher named Zhuangzi looked at people rowing exactly this hard against exactly this current and said the rowing itself was the problem. His answer had a name, Wu Wei, and it has been mistranslated so badly for so long that most people who've heard the phrase think it means the opposite of what it actually means. Here's the mistranslation. Wu means not or without. Wei means action, doing, striving. Put together, Wu Wei gets rendered in English as non-action. And from there, it's a short hop to doing nothing. Quit your job, lie on the couch, let the rent figure itself out. The secret to life is laziness, says the poster, misquoting a man who never said it. That is not what Zhuangzi taught. Every single story he tells to illustrate Wu Wei has someone doing something, swimming through a gorge that drowns lesser swimmers, falling out of a moving cart, growing undisturbed in the same spot for generations. Nobody in these stories is idle. What's missing isn't effort, it's something else. And naming what's actually missing is the whole episode. The word itself doesn't start with Zhuangzi. It starts a generation or two earlier, in the Tao Te Ching, traditionally attributed to Laozi, the short, strange little manual that gives Wu Wei its clearest one-line definition. The Tao does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. Read that twice. It is not the Tao does nothing, and so nothing gets done. The lazy version. It's the opposite. Nothing is left undone. The work happens, just not by force. The Tao Te Ching is even more direct about which direction the effort runs. In the pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In the pursuit of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less is done until non-action is achieved. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. Hustle culture is a daily acquiring. One more habit, one more system, one more thing stacked on. The Tao Te Ching describes the opposite motion, daily subtraction, not subtracting the work, subtracting the forcing. Tradition holds that Laozi gives the one-line definition, and Zhuangzi, writing a generation or so later, supplies the field guide. He doesn't argue for Wu Wei. He shows it to you, standing in a tree, falling out of a cart, swimming through a waterfall. Start with the tree. A carpenter named Shi is traveling and passes an enormous ancient oak by a village shrine, wide enough to shade 1,000 oxen. Branches so big, a dozen of them could be carved into boats. A crowd has gathered just to look at it. The carpenter doesn't even slow down. His apprentice, stunned, finally catches up to him. In my whole life as your apprentice, I have never seen timber this beautiful. Why didn't you even look? Forget it. Say no more. It's a worthless tree. That night, the tree visits the carpenter in a dream and explains itself. And this is the part that should land like a small earthquake if you've ever optimized yourself toward a deadline. The tree compares itself to the fruit trees, the productive ones. Their utility makes life miserable for them, and so they don't get to finish out the years heaven gave them, but are cut off in mid-journey. As for me, I've been trying a long time to be of no use, and though I almost died, I've finally got it. This is of great use to me. If I had been of some use, would I ever have grown this large? The fruit tree's usefulness is exactly what gets it harvested. Limbs torn off, the moment the fruit ripens, year after year, until it's spent. The oak's apparent uselessness is what let it grow into something immense. Nobody can find a use for it, so nobody cuts it down. Quick correction before this gets misread, the way Wu Wei always does. The tree isn't a case for quiet quitting your way to a long life. It's not praising emptiness for its own sake. It's naming a very specific trap. That usefulness, measured by what other people can extract from you, is exactly the metric that gets you cut down. The tree isn't avoiding effort. It's avoiding being harvested for someone else's purpose. That's a different thing than laziness, and it's the thing hustle culture never lets you ask about. Here's a stranger example. Zhuangzi loved strange examples. A man falls out of a moving cart. By any normal physics, that should break something. But he's drunk, and somehow he walks away unhurt. When a drunken man falls from a carriage, though the carriage may be going very fast, he won't be killed. He has bones and joints the same as other men, and yet he is not injured as they would be, because his spirit is whole. He didn't know he was riding, and he doesn't know he has fallen out. Life and death, alarm and terror do not enter his breast, and so he can bang against things without fear of injury. He's not protected because he's relaxed. He's protected because fear never splits him into two, the one falling and the one desperately trying not to. His spirit stays whole, undivided, instead of fracturing into a body in motion and a mind fighting that motion. Zhuangzi is careful to say wine is the cheap, borrowed version of this. If he can keep himself whole like this by means of wine, how much more can he keep himself whole by means of heaven? The lesson isn't drink more. It's that the bracing, the white-knuckle resistance you add on top of whatever is already happening, is usually what does the damage, not the falling itself. Confucius is sightseeing at a stretch of cascades so violent that nothing, no fish, no turtle, can survive in the current. He sees a man swimming in it and assumes he's trying to drown himself. He sends his students running to pull the man out. The man swims a couple hundred paces, climbs out on his own, and walks off down the bank singing, hair still dripping. Confucius catches up and asks the obvious question. What is your Tao, your method, your technique for surviving water like that? I have no Tao. I follow the Tao of the water and never think about myself. I have no Tao doesn't mean he has no skill. He grew up in that water. The skill is so completely absorbed, it no longer feels like a method he's applying to the river. It feels like the river's own logic, which he no longer fights. This is the same lineage of story, by the way, as the butcher who could carve an ox without ever dulling his blade. A different episode covers that one in full, but the shape of the lesson is identical. Total mastery looks, from the outside, like doing nothing at all. So if Wu Wei isn't laziness, and it isn't just relax and hope, what is the actual discipline? Zhuangzi gives it a name too, Xinjai, the fasting of the mind. A student asks how to prepare himself for a difficult, dangerous task. Zhuangzi's answer through the mouth of Confucius in the story is a kind of ladder downward. Don't listen with your ears, listen with your mind. No, don't listen with your mind, but listen with your spirit. Listening stops with the ears. The mind stops with recognition, but spirit is empty and waits on all things. The way gathers in emptiness alone. Emptiness is the fasting of the mind. Ears just register noise. The mind goes one step further, and once it recognizes something, it almost immediately starts judging it, labeling it, comparing it, deciding what it means for you. That's where the forcing sneaks in. The running commentary, the constant low hum of how do I control this? Fasting the mind means starving that commentary, the same way you'd fast a body. Not destroying the mind, just clearing out what it's been compulsively chewing on, so it can actually meet what's in front of it instead of meeting its own anxiety about what's in front of it. This is the actual content of Wu Wei, not don't act. Empty the part of you that's narrating the action while you're trying to do it. So here's where the four stories meet. The tree still grows, the drunk man still falls, the swimmer still swims. The student still has to do the difficult task. In every single case, the action is fully present. What's been removed is something else. The bracing, the forcing, the running commentary that asks, but what if this doesn't work? Hustle culture believes every obstacle is something to overpower. Wu Wei asks whether the obstacle is actually the river you're supposed to be swimming with. Those aren't the same question with two different answers. They're two different questions. And try harder can only ever answer the first one. It has nothing to say to the second. This is the shift, and it's worth sitting with for a second, because it rewires what effort even means. You are not being asked to want less, try less, care less. You are being asked to find the exact place where wanting has curdled into gripping, where effort has gone from doing the thing to fighting the thing, and to loosen that, specifically, while the doing continues underneath it. The river doesn't fight itself to flow downhill. It just flows. The extra forcing, the layer you add on top of the work, the bracing that isn't actually part of doing the thing, was never required. You added it. Tomorrow morning, you'll probably still have the same inbox, the same deadlines, the same difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Wu Wei doesn't promise fewer waves. It asks a different question. How much of your exhaustion is actually coming from the current? And how much of it is coming from fighting it? So, one thing, doable in the next 24 hours. Find the task today where you can feel yourself white-knuckling. The email you're rewriting for the 6th time. The conversation you're rehearsing before it happens. The workout you're gritting your teeth through instead of just doing. Pick exactly one. And for that one task only, try Zhuangzi's actual instruction. Not do less, but stop narrating while you do it. Swim the way the swimmer swims, fully present in the motion, with the running commentary about whether it's working switched off. Notice what changes. Usually, it isn't the difficulty. It's the suffering stapled on top of the difficulty. 3 episodes ago, we said, knowing isn't practicing, that you can read every book on Stoicism and Buddhism and Taoism and still wake up unchanged, because understanding a map is not the same as walking the road. Then we walked the Stoic road, a routine you run, dawn to night, the same structure a man in a Roman frontier camp used to steady himself before facing an empire's worth of decisions. Then we walked the Buddhist road, a path you walk, 8 factors trained as one, looping back on itself, each lap revealing the first step a little differently than the lap before. And now, the 3rd road, and it isn't a routine, and it isn't a path, it's a current you follow, which sounds like the easiest of the 3 and might honestly be the hardest, because it asks you to stop doing the one thing hustle culture trained you to do by reflex. Grip harder the moment something gets difficult. A routine to run, a path to walk, a current to follow. 3 different ancient traditions, looking at the same human problem. Understanding something is not the same as living it, from 3 different angles, and arriving at the same instruction by three different roads. Stop reading about the water. Get in and stop fighting it. That's three traditions, three practices, one underlying thesis. If you've been with us since the beginning, you've now got the Stoics' morning, the Buddhist's path, and the Taoist's river. Three completely different ancient toolkits for the same modern exhaustion. There's a question we keep circling that none of these three episodes answered on its own. When two traditions this different arrive at the same place, are they actually saying the same thing? Or does it just look that way from far enough away? That's worth its own episode, and we'll get there. Subscribe if any of these three landed. And if you've been white-knuckling something today, you know which thing. Try loosening just that one grip before you sleep tonight.